It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3, First up, 10 observations.
Just took his guy and just boom, just put him right on the ground.
It's 1st and 10.
A 24-16 victory for Washington.
Number 1.
Number 1 is that big plays win and lose you games. There have been many games this year where the Washington Commanders have really played well in kind of what I would call the fool's gold area of the field, between the 20s. They can move the football. They're doing some good things. They're getting stops. Like, okay, darn, that's a third down, but what's one third down conversion giving up defense? And then all of a sudden there's another and another. And then all of a sudden you're in the red zone and you give up points, or you give up a big play, from kind of the strike zone, that 40 yards and in. Or offensively, you get to the red zone and you stall out. And obviously there's been some bad snaps, some missed field goals, some regular missed field goals, some other red zone turnovers, fumbles, interceptions. You name it, Commanders have done it this year, and that's why they are 3-3. But the third of the 3 on the winning side comes because they're on the right side of those plays. This is one of the weirdest stat sheets I've ever seen. Buffalo won a game last year where it was the Buffalo-Miami game last year. I actually remember this now, where I'm pretty sure Buffalo won, despite the fact that they ran like 39 plays and Miami ran like 80. So it wasn't quite that lopsided, but that was kind of what happened yesterday. Atlanta ran 79 plays. The defense was out there because of, penalties and stuff. They're out there for 81 to 83 snaps, depending on which count you look at. I think PFF had it at 83. And they're outgained like 400 to 200. You just look at the stat sheet and Atlanta has 5 sacks in the game. And you're like, what the hell happened that this game has this winner? But here's the thing. If you watch the game end to end, not once did you think Atlanta was winning that game. Maybe if you had one thought, it was after the first drive where Atlanta scores and goes up 7-3. But Washington comes right back down, and Washington kind of stopped themselves by, of course, a sack on a first down in that first drive where they wind up ultimately in a 3rd and 14. Sam does a really nice job of getting the ball underneath, making it an easier field goal, even though they don't get the first down. For Joey Sly, he knocks it through. Okay, fine. Washington gives up another for opening drive touchdown because, of course, they do. They can't stop. They're just addicted to them defensively, giving up the first drive touchdowns. And then that's it. Kibosh gets put down. Washington goes up. They stay up. They're up through the half. They're up. They come out, get the interception to start the second half, march down, touchdown 2 plays later, and they're like, it's over. And while Atlanta was obviously within striking distance, it ultimately is an 8-point, thus 1-score game. It is about the ability to make the plays in the big moments, 3rd downs, 4th downs, in the red zone, where they get interceptions on a 4th down play a 3rd down play by Jamison to seal it. You got a 4th down stop by Danny Johnson. You got a 4th down stop by Cam Curl on Bijan Robinson earlier in the game. Benjamin St. Juste's first career interception comes in the red zone. Like, these turnovers happen in such key situations that Atlanta does not have a shot in this game. And so while this is going to be one of the more fascinating games in 8 years of doing this that I've ever had the chance to break down, and I'm really excited to sit in front of my microphone at home and do the Take Command podcast tomorrow morning with Logan after he's had a chance to go through it, and I'll take some time tonight to go through some of the tape as much as I can as well. Like, let's be clear. The stat sheet and what you experienced emotionally watching the game are 2 very different things. And it is a reminder of what it feels like to be on the right side of a team that actually makes plays, as opposed to one that between the 20s in the fool's gold part of the field is clicking on all cylinders, but can't actually make the big plays when it matters. That's the difference in the game. Period. End of story. That is why the Commanders won.
Number 2.
That said, they were still frustratingly bad situationally in the second half, specifically offensively, and also the head coach. I'll start with Eric Bieniemy. I'm starting to notice a pattern on these sacks. I'm going to have to go back and watch them all to make sure that I get the situations exactly right. So we'll have more on this tomorrow for sure. But a lot of these sacks that Sam Howell is taking are on obvious passing downs. And in those situations, it feels like there's a lot of vertical routes down the field, which makes sense at its most basic concept. Hey, we got to get a bunch of yards, send people away from the line of scrimmage. That's where all them yards are. But that's just not a good way to beat any defense. Like, defenses are designed vertically. There's not really, like, outside of man-to-man where you just chase the guy that you're covering, there's no defense that's specifically designed to guard people horizontally. Everything is vertical alignments. Whether you're a deep player or underneath player, you're responsible for sure a horizontal area, but you're really responsible first and primarily for getting depth to close down windows, to make things easier, to keep plays in front of you, etc. And then you move side to side within your vertical zone, right? Cover 3 is named because of the vertical elements of that, not because of the horizontal. Yes, it's 3 across, but it's 3 deep players. Cover 2 deep players. Cover 1 singular player roaming the entire deeper vertical part of the field. And so offensively, I like attacking horizontally. And this is a personal preference, but it's one that most offensive coordinators, frankly, including Eric Bieniemy, often use. It's like, how do we get to where there's confusion and where the vertical versus horizontal zone coverage thing comes in, right? Is if I'm Terry McLaurin running across the field against zone coverage, I can get into an area between those zones versus I'm more likely to be directly passed off if I pass through a short zone into a deeper zone vertically. So the coverage is there. If you do not cause people to communicate and you do not cause these pass-offs or a lack of pass-off, and that's why in zone coverage, find the spot, sit down, and then you're available and open. So whether it's crossing routes, whether it's just switch releases, there's all kinds of things that can happen to create holes in zones. And also, when someone is running horizontally, it is just easier for the quarterback to see multiple people at once as opposed to kind of looking at an area of the field and trying to read something that's vertically out. Sure, that's great if someone busts coverage and you have a clean look down the field, but you're relying on that. And if it's down the field, it inherently takes more time. And so I think when we look at the sack issue that Sam Howell continues to have, yes, Sam needs to get the freaking ball out. And that is something that I'm sure Eric and Tavita Pritchard and Kenny Zampese and Ron Rivera and everybody else who talks to Sam Howell on a regular basis is preaching. Hey, dude, get the ball out of your hands. And you see it starting to happen more. Even yesterday, one of the play calls I hated situationally was a screen on 3rd and 20 at the end of the first half. And Sam dirts it, which is the correct play, except for basically in that situation when you're honestly just better off taking a sack because then the clock keeps running because you're at the end of the half. But theoretically, at least Sam learns, hey, it's not there. Instead of making something happen, let me dirt this ball. Let me throw it over someone's head. There's a play in the game where he's trying to find Terry deep. And again, it was a situation where I would have much rather him actually taken a sack in the situation to keep the clock running. But he's like, I get the ball out, clock's going off. So part of this is play design and not calling things that are so vertical down the field. And we'll have to confirm this on tape. But, there's no one in the picture as he's getting sacked that's coming horizontally shallow across the field. And I know one of the last sacks he took, Antonio Gibson barely gets out of the backfield as a blocker. 4 guys go vertical, and then the back, is late to release. So I don't know where his check down is. So part of this is a play calling thing from Bieniemy in certain situations, and they've got to find a way to mix that up. That said, also, time, score, situation. What are we doing on some of this stuff? If you're Washington, it is just crazy to me. At the end of the first half, they're dropping Sam back and fine, but where's a drive starter? Where's a simple handoff, a screen, or something to get the drive going on 1st or 2nd down? Get a little forward momentum, get the defense moving, make it communicate a little bit more. Instead, it's 1st down, set hut, drop back. You don't get it. Okay, take a sack. 2nd down, same thing. Okay, well, now we take a sack. 3rd down, now we're going for the screen? No, man, just run the football and let the clock run out. Or make them burn a timeout. If you're going to do something that's not a downfield shot, then and I know screens can be big plays, but on 3rd and 20, defenses are looking for it. That's the hardest time to get a big play on a screen because teams are actually alerted to it, especially against you, because you're Eric Bieniemy and you're an Andy Reid disciple and people know what's up. So at that point, just hand the ball off. Football sometimes is discretion being the better part of valor, where for time, score, situation purposes, You've just got to know when it's time to go. I also hated them handing the ball off. It worked out fine, but like hated them handing the ball off on first down inside their own 5 after Atlanta screws the pooch after that Washington drive that I just talked about and gives them the ball right back. Like your shotgun snap and a handoff inside the 5, just take the knee. It's not like you were on the 1 and you were risking a safety. They took the knee the next snap. What was the point of that? You're risking a fumble. You're risking a bad snap. Just take the knee. And so time score situation, yes, I love Eric Bieniemy's. I love 92% of what Eric Bieniemy does. I really do. I think he's a phenomenal offensive coordinator, and I have no qualms about saying that dude has forgotten more football than I will ever know. But there's just certain basic things that I think football coaches do where they can't seem to see the forest through the trees. And this time management thing is one of them. And Rivera did it in this game. One of the dumbest timeouts I've seen in his 4 years here. Atlanta is literally about to have a delay of game on a key. It's like 3rd and 1, or it was 4th and 1. And there's 3 on the play clock. They're not set. And Ron calls timeout because Washington's not ready. There's 3 on the play clock. Let it just be a delay of game on Atlanta. They're not going to get that snap off. And you want proof? They did it like 4 other times in the game and had to burn timeouts and or took multiple delays of game. So whether it's long developing routes on 3rd down and understanding your personnel and what they're good and bad at. And Sam's got to learn how to escape the pocket too. That's a different discussion for later. Or the situational play calling, knowing when to eat it, knowing when to make other teams burn timeouts, knowing when to use your own timeouts. Like, thank God guys made plays in this game. It overrides everything. Interceptions, stealing possessions, all that stuff overrides everything because this actually wasn't that well managed of a game by the Commanders, especially in the second half. All right, those are the 2 biggest things that I take out of yesterday. We'll run through the next 8 of our 1st and 10 next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 1st and 10 is how we start the show on a Victory Monday. Spent a good amount of time on our first 2 observations, so let's pick it back up and roll through quickly our last 8. Off we go.
Number 3.
All right, number 3, Jamison Crowder. This is why he's here. For everybody that was screaming at Ron Rivera and company for having Dax Milne return punts the last little bit, congrats on getting your validation. Milne did a fine job because he never turned the football over, and that was the most important thing that a punt returner could do. But you want to know who also hasn't turned the football over and probably won't? That's Jamison Crowder. You want to know who's a lot more explosive and can get you big plays and change football games? Jamison Crowder. They're so lucky he was available, and sure, there's probably other guys out there that could have returned punts, but a veteran that you can comes in, can be reliable. I mean, probably feels at home a little bit as well. And talking to him in the locker room after the Buffalo game, like, he said it was weird because it's familiar, but nobody is familiar because the entire organization's changed since he's been gone. But to be able to just see it, make that one cut, you see the short area burst. He's still got that. He was never a long speed guy, so it's actually not terribly surprising he got caught from behind. Also, it's a long sprint, a lot of quick movement, and then trying to run 60 yards. So someone's able to get him. But mega blocks by Terrell Burgess, Dejon Harris, like fantastic job by that special teams unit, which actually felt like it had one of its best games of the season, even though Jeremy Reeves, the All-Pro, and some other pieces that are regularly a part of that were either not there at all or performing other duties. Quan Martin, heck of a game as a gunner as well. Certainly his best so far of the season.
Number 4.
Terry McLaurin. What an impact that guy had. There were 50 plays for the game offensively for Washington. Terry McLaurin was targeted 11 times. Yeah! That's what we're talking about. When we have Keenan Allen getting 20 targets and Jamar getting 18 in Cincinnati and Justin Jefferson getting like 15 a week and Cooper Kupp getting $3,742,000 per half, can we get Terry McLaurin some targets? You're paying him $70 million. Get the return on your investment. And by the way, you gave him that money because he's really good at football. And getting him those early touches, those easy, shallow crosses, stuff that's going to be open basically 100% of the time, letting him set the tone, letting him run through people. Like, that stuff matters to an offense. And I might have to go back through and like check their scoring drives on the year, but it feels like if he gets the ball, they score at a much higher percentage. And some of that is, self-fulfilling because better chance he gets the ball on some drives that are getting extended and all that kind of stuff. But just getting him the ball early and often is so important to this team. And they did as good of a job, not just as they've done all year, but as good of a job as any offensive coordinator has done since they have had Terry McLaurin, of getting him the ball yesterday. Literally over 20% of the time Washington snapped the ball goes to 17. Excellent.
Number 5.
Because of that low play number, you don't get a ton of touches for Brian Robinson. But, man, that touchdown was cool. I have rarely seen a player look at a situation and go, I can slightly cut left and probably score, slightly cut right, probably score, or I can take that defensive back, drive my helmet into his numbers, and go through him for the score. And that is what Brian Robinson decided to do, and I loved it. That poor DB is getting blocked by Terry McLaurin. He finally kind of gets off the block, and it's like Terry felt B-Rob coming and was like, block, 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 open the door, bang! Down he goes. That was sweet, and that shows you also why getting him the ball in space is probably a good idea.
Number 6.
Talk about a guy who made an impact in a small sample size. Khaleke Hudson played 10 snaps yesterday. He had 3 tackles, including 2 solo. He felt like he was all over the field more than almost any Washington defender, and he played 10 snaps. I don't know if they will play their base defense, which is primarily what he was in yesterday. They actually played 3 linebackers. I don't know if they'll play that much more this year. Maybe they will now because they don't want Quan Martin out there too much. They don't want to play as much Buffalo nickel, and so they'll play a little bit of Buffalo nickel, a little bit of base, a little bit of regular nickel. Like, they're going to mix it up with Derek Forrest out until Forrest gets back. But if that's what it looks like, play more base. Like, I know most teams aren't going to run it as much as Atlanta runs it, and stopping the run isn't nearly as critical because it's like the whole lifeblood of Atlanta's offense as it will be in any other game this year. But man, what an impact job. And he did give up like 1 play to Bijan, but it was a pick route. He got picked. Maybe if he was playing more, the communication would be better. But he also does a great job even on that play of, like, I got beat, but I'm going to get back into play. I'm going to corral the ball carrier, who's really hard to corral. It's a Bijan Robinson. I don't think Bijan got any of his over-the-head camera highlights yesterday. And he wraps up, makes a tackle. You get beat, don't give up an explosive. Great job. Khaleke Hudson was awesome yesterday. Give me more Khaleke Hudson.
Number 7.
Give me less of Chase Young. Not because Chase Young is playing poorly, but because Chase Young should not be playing 90% of the snaps. I know he's in great shape, and I know that he's a freak, and I know on every single play that he's out there, the potential for something special to happen is there. But you've got to live in reality. And this goes for Chase, and this goes for the coaches that are managing him. He played the same amount of snaps as Jamin Davis yesterday, who I think played a higher percentage than he had in any other game this year. And the result is he is not busting his butt on the backside of plays. And he's kind of making calculated business decisions. Not even business decisions. It's calculated, like, energy deployment decisions of, like, I can either sprint on the backside of this play and hope something good happens and I make an impact, or I can kind of save it up for my prime pass rush energy the next snap. And he's doing that. And it's probably the right calculation if he's playing this much. But it also results in him missing a tackle. It results in him only having 1 tackle on the game, according to the official stats. PFF had him with 0. So he's just not involved the way that he would be if he was fresh. And so that number doesn't need to be 60. The number should be 80-ish. 75 in a game like yesterday where there's 79 snaps, 83 snaps, 79 plays, 83 snaps. Like, that's just too many, and the results are there. So don't love that. Chase, I mean, and that's not a criticism of Chase. It's a criticism, frankly, of the coaches who are managing that rotation.
Number 8.
By the way, especially when Casey Tuhill plays like the way he did yesterday, and James does a good job, and FA's back, like, there's no reason for it. The red zone timeout, I talked about it earlier from Rivera. That's number 8, and I was ready to throw something. Like, what are you doing? Like, I understand you'd rather be safe than sorry because you're not comfortable with where you're at. Your guys seem a little bit confused. But you got to double check the play clock, man. There's 3 seconds on the play clock, and Atlanta's running guys all over the freaking place. they're going to get a delay of game. Don't waste a second half timeout and bail your opponent out of a delay of game. That's it. That's the analysis. I don't need to say anything else.
Number 9.
That was John Allen's most impactful game of the year. He had 6 tackles, I believe, in the game. He's involved in the line of scrimmage. He has a key stop with Kalik down on like a 3rd and 1 that looked like it was definitely going to be a conversion, and they're able to just back you go. Nuh-uh, not happening. His play strength is outrageous. Like watching him stop grown men, like running backs, ball carriers, whoever, and just be like, no, you're dead right here, is ridiculous. And it's glad to see him back after he was definitely seemed to be struggling through the first quarter of the season. Again, I don't know whether that was the foot itself or kind of the lack of conditioning because the foot caused him to miss the back half of training camp. But good to see John Allen back looking much more like John Allen. Last but not least,
Number 10.
We got to figure out what's going on with Jahan Dotson. I thought he was going to lead this team in receiving, or at least receptions this year, and he has been absent. I love what they're doing with Curtis Samuel, but Jahan's the guy that one target yesterday, and obviously he drops it. Is that because he's out of rhythm, because he's not involved? Like, what's going on? And everyone talks about how great of a route runner he is, but I do think one thing that's happening is I don't know if he's got like the depths of all the routes right and the angles right. He's clearly got the skill to shake someone and route someone up at the top of the route. But if that shake and that, that cut is at the wrong depth or comes out at the wrong angle, you wind up not being open or messing up the timing of a play. And so I also do wonder in some of these situations where Sam's taking sacks, if you go look at what's happening on Jahan's routes, is he one of the guys that's making it harder on Sam to get the ball out? So it's something that you're going to have to look at the tape. They're never going to tell us that. Hopefully some intrepid reporters can get a little more insight. And we're definitely going to focus on it on Take Command tomorrow with Logan. So that has been Logan's homework assignment, is to watch every Jahan Dotson route and see what's going on. So we will talk about it then, and we'll let you know what we find when we dive into the tape on the podcast here on the radio show. Okay, that is First and 10. 10 observations off the top of the show.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.